November, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas, I was thinking a couple of weeks ago na sa Amerika, hindi masyadong sineselebrate ang All Saints Day, right? But here, it's actually a holiday, di ba? Pag November 1, wala tayong pasok. So when we think about November, the month of November, many times, the first thing that we think about is what? Ang araw ng mga patay. Yes, right? November is the month where we remember our loved ones who passed away, our friends who passed away. But you know what? Death is not just about human death. Yan ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong umagang ito, tungkol sa kamatayan. Pero hindi lamang sa kamatayan ng isang tao o kamatayan ng flesh. But we will also talk about the death of relationships, the death of hope. If you can assist me with my PowerPoint, it's not yes. All right? So when we talk about death, death is not just about human death. It is also about the death of dreams, the death of hope, the death of a relationship, the death of opportunities, the death of trust and faith in God. And you know, when I looked at the dictionary, sabi ko, ano ba talaga ang ibig sabihin ng death? Death means the end, the permanent ending, full stop, or irreversible process. So, when we talk about death, it is not just, ay, bukas lang, okay na ulit. No. When we talk about death, ito yung punto sa mga buhay natin na sinasabi natin, wala na. Wala nang pag-asa, hanggang dito na lang. It's when we declare a full stop. It's when we declare na hanggang dito na lang, wala na yung pangarap ko, wala na yung pag-asa ko, wala na yung relasyon na ito, wala na tong oportunidad na ito, wala na yung pag-asa at yung pagtitiwala ko sa Diyos. And it is also the irreversible process. Pag sinabi nating irreversible, ibig sabihin, ito yung mga tao sa buhay natin, mga pagkakataon, mga sitwasyon na hindi na natin maibabalik pa. So now, I want you to think about what are the moments, ano yung mga bagay sa buhay natin na especially in the past 8 months, di ba, na na-quarantine tayo, na may pandemic, ano yung mga bagay na pakiramdam natin nakaranas tayo ng kamatayan? Now, there are different kinds of death, sabi nga natin. Pero ano yung mga naranasan mo? Is it a death of a loved one? Is it a death of your dream? Is it a death of your opportunity? Is it a death of hope? Ito yung mga bagay na binibigyan natin at nilalagyan natin ng tuldok o period. You know, in writing, when we put a period, we put an end to a sentence. Di ba? Kapag nagsusulat tayo, tuldok kapag tapos na yung sentence. And in life, we put a period to things or situations we feel hopeless about. We put a period to a friendship. Wala na, hindi na kami maaayos nito. Masyado nang malalim yung sakit namin sa bawat isa. We put an end to a situation or a dream na hindi ko na talaga makakamtan to. Kahit anong gawin ko, hindi ko na magagawa yung gusto kong gawin. We put an end to our intimacy with God. We put a period. Lagi naman ako nagkakasala. Paulit-ulit. Siguro, yung intimacy with God, yung closeness with God, para sa ibang tao lang yun, pero hindi para sa akin. And we put an end or period to our own growth. Diba? Kung sino dito yung mga nagpapapayat, ever nyo na ba na-feel na hindi na talaga ako papayat? Diba? We put a period to our physical fitness. Diba? Or sometimes naman we say, wala na, hanggang dito na lang ako. Lagi na lang ako worrier, lagi akong talunan. We put a period to our emotional growth. And many times, you also put a period on our spiritual growth. Wala na, hindi na ako kayang baguhin ng Panginoon. 10 years na akong Christian, pero ganito pa rin ako. It's the end. And you know what? Endings are not really bad at all. Okay lang, may mga bagay na pinapahintulutan ng Panginoon na matapos. But what if yung mga bagay na nasa isipan nyo kanina, the kind of death, the different kinds of death that you were thinking about, what if for God, it is not the end? What if yung pag-asa mo, it's really not the end? What if your dreams, it's really not the end? What if your intimacy with God na nilagyan mo ng period, it's really not the end? And so today, we're going to talk about John chapter 11. If you have your Bibles with you, if you have your phones with you, babasahin natin ang John chapter 11. And this is a very familiar story of Lazarus. So we begin in verse 1. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. Her brother Lazarus was sick. So the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. And we know Mary, Martha, right? Familiar? Mary and Martha, ito yung magkapatid na yung isa, busy sa pagluluto, yung isa naman, sat on the feet of Jesus. Remember? So silang dalawa, Mary and Martha, meron silang kapatid na si Lazarus. And these siblings, they were very, very close with Jesus. In fact, gustong-gusto ni Jesus pumunta sa tahanan ni Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Ito yung parang kunyari pupunta kang Laguna. Siyempre, yung pinaka-close mo sa Laguna, yun ang pupuntahan mo. Diba? Doon ka mag-overnight. So, ganun yung relationship ng siblings na ito with Jesus. So, no wonder, nung may sakit si Lazarus, sino ang una nilang tatakbuhan? Jesus, right? So, they sent Jesus a message, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. Now, I want all of us to imagine, kunyari ikaw si Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Of course, you will have expectations. Ano yung mga expectation mo? Dahil tinawag mo si Jesus, ano yung expectation mo na gagawin niya? First, obviously, ang expectation natin is, Jesus, malapit ka sa amin. Jesus, mahal mo kami. Mahal ka rin namin. So, ang expectation namin is, tutulungan mo kami, pagagalingin niyo yung kapatid namin. Right? And alam nila, because they were close to Jesus, alam nila na hindi kailangan ni Jesus pumunta sa kanila para gumaling si Lazarus. Remember the centurion in Matthew 8:8. Diba? Sabi nung centurion, Jesus, you do not have to go to my house. You just say the word and my servant will be healed. Alam ni Mary, Martha, and Lazarus yon. So alam nitong sisters na ito na hindi kailangan ni Jesus pumunta dito. Pag nalaman ni Jesus na may sakit si Lazarus, kailangan lang niyang sabihin at mapapagaling ang aming kapatid. So that's one possible expectation. Alright? So ano pa yung another possible expectation? Now, I want you to look at this map. And you will see Bethany, nandiyan si Mary, Martha, Lazarus, and then you would see Perea. So most probably, Jesus was there during that time. So gaano kalayo ito? At least 1 day of traveling by foot. Siyempre, noong time na yun, wala pa namang kotse, di ba? So, naglalakad sila. So, 1 day travel. Now, alam ni Mary and Martha na posible na pagdating ng messenger sa Perea, patay na si Lazarus. Right? Alam nila yun kasi malayo ang biyahe. Baka pag nakarating kay Jesus yung message, wala na yung kapatid namin. So, the least expectation na meron sila is this. Jesus, dumating ka lang dito. Kahit na sige sabihin nating mamatay yung kapatid namin, at least nandito ka. Diba lahat tayo, we expect our closest friends to be with us when we are having this kind of problems, diba? Pag tayo ay namatayan, we expect every time na yung mga best friends natin, yung mga close sa atin, makikiramay para sa atin. But what happened? Let's continue in verse 4. Sabi, but when Jesus heard about it, he said, so nakarating yung balita kay Jesus. Ang sabi niya, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. When Jesus arrived at Bethany, dumating na si Jesus kung nasan si Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. He was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for how many days? 4 days.
4 days. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary stayed in the house. Siguro sobrang disappointed ni Mary. Hindi niya kayang makita si Jesus during that time. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died." Think about the expectations and think about what Jesus did. Nakakapanglumo, di ba? Imagine your expectations were crushed. Your expectations were not met. And probably it's possible that Martha was thinking, God, Jesus, mahal mo kami, di ba? Close tayo, di ba? Pero bakit mo hinayaang mangyari ito? What happened to their expectations? It was crushed. What happened to Lazarus? He died. And Jesus deliberately, sinadya ni Jesus na magstay pa sa Perea for extra 2 days. Pwede naman na umalis siya agad, di ba? But no, he stayed there for extra 2 days. So by the time na dumating siya sa Bethany, 4 days nang patay si Lazarus. And no wonder Martha was in deep sorrow. Imagine the disappointment. Imagine yung feeling na, bakit ngayon ka lang? May magagawa kay alam namin eh. We saw miracles happen, pero bakit ngayon ka lang? Bakit nga ba? Right? Why did Jesus delay? I think if Ate Heidi, our Sunday school teacher, ang madalas na tinuturo sa Sunday school is that, bakit nag-delay si Jesus? Kasi, para sa ganon, kapag dumating si Jesus at binuhay niya si Lazarus, walang magiging doubt na talagang nabuhay mula sa pagkamatay si Lazarus. Right? And then the glory will be all to God. Hindi nila i-doubt, which is true. This explanation is true. Why? Because during that ancient times, alam nyo ba, na ang paniniwala nila na pag may namatay daw, 3 days pang umiikot-ikot yung spirito doon sa tomb. So, kapag dumating si Jesus ng 2nd day, 3rd day, probably ang iisipin ng tao ay hindi talaga patay yan kasi bumalik yung kaluluwa. So, sinadya ni Jesus that on the 4th day, meaning 4th day, there's absolutely no hope for resuscitation. Sure na patay na yan. Pag hindi yan bumangon, after the 3rd day, sure patay na yan. So, sinadya ni Jesus na 4th day para walang doubt na talaga siya ay bubuhayin mula sa pagkamatay. But you know what? There is another reason. Another reason that may kinalaman kay Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And this is our first point. Because, this reason raises a huge question mark. Now, let's look at this. Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. This loved in Latin means agape, which comes from the word agape. Diba? Ano ang agape? Agape is the highest form of love. It's the purest form of love. It is the most unconditional form of love. So imagine, there is no doubt that Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Inisa-isa pa talaga yung pangalan nila. Pwede naman Jesus loved them. But in this verse, John made it a point to say Jesus loved Mary, Jesus loved Martha, Jesus loved Lazarus. Kasi ganun na lang kalalim ang pag-ibig ng Diyos para sa magkakapatid na ito. But here's my question. So, although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, He stayed where He was for the next 2 days. Meron bang weird about this sentence? What is weird about this sentence? Tatagalugin natin Mahal ni Jesus si Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Kaya, nanatili pa siya ng 2 pang araw sa Perea, kung nasaan man siya. Isn't it weird? Diba? Ang weird. Jesus loved Lazarus, so He let him die. Jesus loved Mary, Martha, so hinayaan niyang magdusa sila at mag-grieve sila. Ito yung sinasabi ng verse na yan. So, to be honest, when I was reading this verse, sabi ko, paano naging pagmamahal? How can this be love? Now, sino sa atin, pag hindi nag-reply ang crush mo, o ang ka-MU mo, o ang boyfriend mo, o ang asawa mo on time, kahit nga kaibigan mo sino dito yung sasama ang loob? Hindi magre-reply on time. Right? So, sa atin, bilang mga tao, delay is not equal love. Right? Pag pinag-intay ka, para pakiramdam mo, that's not love. Diba? Kapag na-late yung kausap mo, isipin mo, ang bastos naman ito, walang respeto sa oras ko. That's not love. But you know what? Jesus was not operating in the human concept of love. Ang konsepto ni Jesus sa pagmamahal ay hindi kung paano natin iniisip ang pagmamahal. Because for Jesus, true love is doing what He needs to do in order to reveal most fully His all-satisfying glory. To be loved by God is to be shown His glory. To be loved by God is for Him to give us what we need most. Jesus loved agape. Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So, He wanted them to see His glory. Ano ang glory? What is God's glory? God's glory is God on display. God's glory is when you see Him move. God's glory is when you see His power. God's glory is when you see Him. Ito yung sinasabi kanina sa kinakanta natin that when we see God face to face, when you see Him, when you experience Him firsthand. And so, Jesus wanted them, because Jesus loved them, Jesus wanted them to see Him, His glory. What else? Jesus loved them, so He wanted to give them what they need most. And what do they need most? God Himself. Jesus Himself. Kasi alam ni Jesus na ako lang, ang glory lang ng Diyos ang makakapag-satisfy sa puso mo. So Jesus wanted them to see His glory, and Jesus wanted to give them what they need most. Yes, Jesus knew that being ill would cause Lazarus pain. Jesus knew that Lazarus' death would bring so much grief to Mary and Martha. Jesus knew that not being there would bring deep disappointment to this family. But Jesus also knew that nothing will bring them the most joy than for them to see God's glory. How do you relate to Martha? This is my first questions to you. How do we relate to Martha? Have you ever felt like God has disappointed you? Isipin niyo yung mga moments that you felt like, God, late ka. God, kung nandito ka lang, kung inagahan mo lang, God, if you only acted sooner, then my life would be better. God, if ginawa mo lang to, then hindi ako magdurusa ngayon. But ano yung kasiguraduhan that when God moves according to our plans, na magiging okay ang lahat sa buhay natin? Do we really see the big picture? Do we really see from God's vantage point? But still, like Martha, we have been disappointed. But we can be assured that the delay of God in meeting our needs is always and only for our good and for His glory. You know, ang delay para sa atin, it can be a delay for us, but to God, it's not a delay. Pero dahil may sarili siyang timeline, hindi siya nakabase sa timeline natin. So we can be assured na pag sa tingin natin na de-delay si God, it's only and always two things, for your good and for His glory. Many times isip natin, ay ang selfish naman ni God, puro glory na lang niya. No, it's always for your good and for His glory. How do you view God's love? Diba? Kanina nakita natin yung very contrasting phrases. Jesus loved them, kaya na-late siya. Jesus loved them, kaya hindi siya umalis agad. So when delays happen in our life, when we do not understand God's timing and God's ways, do we question His love? Ang dali, di ba? I'm guilty of that. Sobrang daling i-question yung love ni God when things are not going our way. And many times we think, God, I thought you loved me, but why? He loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, so He delayed His coming. He loved Lazarus, so He let him die. He loves you, so He's not giving you what you want. He loves you, so He's allowing losses in your life. He loves you, so He's making you wait. He loves you, so He's breaking you. He loves you, so He's making you empty. He loves you, so He's putting you in a lonely place. Now tell me, isn't it ironic? Right? The red and the blue phrases, parang hindi siya nagtutugma. How can this be love? And you know, many times in my personal life as well, I've asked this, God, if you really love me, why? But maybe, God is allowing this, sabi natin kanina, di ba? To show us His glory, to give us what we need most. And the question is, yung one thing that I realized, the reason why we cannot understand this kind of love is because God is not our supreme treasure. Again, I'll repeat that. The reason why we cannot understand this kind of love that Jesus has for us is because God is not our supreme treasure. Hindi siya ang pinakamahalaga sa'yo. He loves you, so He's not giving you what you want to show you that He is your satisfaction. Pero hindi mo yun makita dahil kung ano yung gusto mo, yun ang mas importante sa'yo. He loves you, so He's allowing losses in your life to show you that He is your peace and comfort. He's making you wait to show you that He is your contentment. Pero hindi mo yun makita, hindi natin yun makita because mas gusto natin yung hinihintay natin. He's breaking you because He wants to show you that He is your significance. He's emptying you because He wants to show you that He is your fulfillment. Pero hindi mo ulit makita yon dahil kung ano yung pleasure mo, yun ang mas importante sa atin. He's putting you in a lonely place because He wants to show you that He is your portion. Anak, I am yours and you are mine. Pero hindi natin yun makita because we want to be somewhere else. So the question for us is this: is God our supreme treasure? If God is not our supreme treasure, we won't see Him as the thing that we need most. We won't realize that for Him to give us more of Himself is what it truly means to be loved. Mahal ka ng Diyos, kaya ibinibigay niya at pinapakita niya sa iyo ang sarili niya. But the question is God our supreme treasure? Siya ba ang pinaka-importante sa mga buhay natin? So that is a challenge for all of us this morning to ask God, are you really the most important thing in my life? Because if it's not, hindi natin talaga maiintindihan the kind of love that Jesus has for us. So let's continue the story. So sabi ni Martha, God, bakit ngayon ka lang? Jesus, bakit ngayon ka lang? And then, she continued, But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise again when everyone else rises at the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never ever die. Do you believe this, Martha? Now, the fascinating thing about this is that si Martha, may disappointment siya, right? Pero in her last sentence, makikita natin na may faith pa rin siya. Diba? Sabi niya, God, Jesus, bakit ngayon ka lang? Pero naniniwala ako kung ano man ang hilingin mo sa Diyos Ama ay siyang magaganap. So we see here na may disappointment siya, pero meron pa rin siyang pananampalataya. But then, sabi ni Jesus, tama ka. Your brother will rise again. Pero si Martha pala, ang iniisip niyang pag-rise again is during the last day. So Martha was so focused, the theology of Martha was right. Tama that everyone who believes in Christ will rise in the last day. But Martha was so focused on the future hope that she was missing the present hope. Nasa harapan niya si Jesus. And no wonder why Jesus declared something about himself. And this is the exclamation point. Diba? When we put exclamation point, ibig sabihin, full of emotions. When we put an exclamation point, ibig sabihin, very strong declaration. And let's look at what Jesus said. I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live. Even after dying, everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. I am the resurrection and the life. So, ang sinasabi dito ni Jesus is, Martha, tama ang alam mo. Yes, everyone who believes in Christ will rise in the last day. But look at me, I'm here, and I am the resurrection and the life. So Jesus was saying, Martha, hindi ko lang kayang bumuhay ng mga patay because I am the resurrection. I cannot, hindi lang ako yung nagbibigay buhay, but I am the life. I am not just capable of resurrecting dead things or dead people. I'm not just capable to bring life because I am the resurrection and the life. So it's as if Jesus was telling Martha, the resurrection has come to the world. That power, that control, that life-giving force is me and I am here. Nasa harapan mo ko, Martha. You know, Martha was hopeful about the future, but she was not hopeful about the present. And many times we're like that, di ba? Pag naiisip natin yung problema ng buhay, ang iniisip natin, hayaan mo na, darating naman yung araw na pupunta tayo lahat sa langit, wala nang iiyak, wala nang maghihirap sa langit. That's true, your theology is right. But maybe you're missing the point because Jesus is here now. Which means that wherever Jesus is, resurrection is possible. Wherever Jesus is, hindi natin kailangang antayin yung future because He has promised a present hope. Believe. Jesus asked Martha a very personal question. After his declaration that I am the resurrection and the life, he asked Martha, do you believe this, Martha? And this believe is pistio in Greek, which means faith. Pero hindi lang to yung believe-believan. This is the kind of belief that you really believe with full confidence. So Jesus was asking Martha, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the source of life. Do you believe this? Are you fully confident? Because Martha have seen a lot of miracles already. Diba? Parang tayo. We go to church, we hear people testify, we've seen God move mightily on their behalf. But how about on our behalf? Right? Many times we just see it from other people. But at that time, gusto ni Jesus maranasan ni Mary, Martha, and Lazarus for themselves, firsthand, kung ano yung kaya niyang gawin. And so he asked, do you fully believe? Are you fully confident that I am the source of life? A while ago, I asked you to think about the things that looks dead in your life. The things that you have put a period on. Ano yung mga bagay sa buhay mo na nilagyan mo na ng tuldok? What is the situation that you have labeled as hopeless? Wala na yan. Wala nang pag-asa yan. Let me remind you that exclamation point that Jesus declared about himself. Jesus exclaimed, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the source of life. I am living and I am life-giving. Again, I am the source of life. I am living. Buhay ako at ako ang nagbibigay ng buhay. And so, whatever looks dead in your life right now, if Jesus is with you, then He can resurrect that. He can resurrect that dream. He can resurrect that hope. He can even resurrect you. Sabi natin kanina, many times, we have given up sa mga sarili natin, di ba? Wala na, hindi na ako magbabago. But you know what? When Jesus is with us, then He can resurrect you and me. Now, maybe you're thinking, Shaina, kanina po pa sinasabi ang resurrect, resurrect, resurrect. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng resurrect? Resurrect is to bring to life. Resurrect is to bring new vigor. Pag sinabing vigor, new health, new passion, new happiness, new joy. And so if there is an aspect in your life na wala ng joy, na wala ng peace, na namatay na yung passion mo, namatay na yung pag-asa mo, then Jesus is telling you right now, I am the resurrection and the life. Many times, we look at this verse, iniisip natin, He is the resurrection and the life in the future. Like Martha. But Jesus is telling us now, I am the resurrection and the life even now. So I can resurrect, I can restore. Whatever is in your life that looks dead, I can restore. I can restore and give life to the barren places of your hearts. I can restore you. God's resurrecting power is available now. If you are hearing this, if you are here in the church, can you all just say, God's resurrecting power is available now. Not later, not next year, not when it's rapture, but now. God's resurrecting power is available now. The question is, the same question that Jesus asked Martha, He's asking you right now. Do you believe? Do you believe? God knows you by name and He's asking you, do you believe? Do you have full confidence in who Jesus says He is? Jesus, ayaw lang niya na may confidence si Martha sa kaya niyang gawin. Pero Jesus wanted Martha to have confidence in who He is. Martha, hindi ko lang kayang magbuhay ng mga patay, hindi ko lang kayang magbigay ng buhay, pero ako ang resurrection, ako ang buhay. So let's continue. Ano ang sagot ni Martha? Sabi niya, yes, Lord. I have always believed that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. So another declaration of Martha, I do believe, Lord, I believe. And so, anong sabi ni Jesus? Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell is terrible. Martha, akala ko ba you believe? Funny how Martha said, I believe Jesus. Pero nung sinabi ni Jesus na roll the stone, Martha felt like, anong gusto mong gawin? Hahagkan mo ba yung kapatid namin? Gusto mo bang makita yung bangkay ng kapatid namin? Mabaho na. And it's funny because Jesus wanted to do the supernatural. He was preparing. Roll the stone, take that out so that I can raise Lazarus. Pero hindi pa niya yung sinasabi, right? Sinabi niya yon implicitly beforehand. But still, Martha was confused. Because during that time, wala pa pong nabubuhay si Jesus na mga patay. This is the first time that Jesus actually would resurrect a person who has been dead for 4 days. Dati, Jesus turned the water into wine. Jesus healed the sick. Jesus gave eyes to the blind, pero wala pa siyang miracle na ganito. So hindi sumasagi sa utak ni Martha na pwedeng magbuhay si Jesus ng patay. And so, sabi ni Martha, Jesus, mabaho na yung bangkay na yan. 4 na araw na. Now, tama ba yung logic ni Martha? Yes. Right? Tama yung logic niya. But she was using her human logic to argue with God's logic. So si God, si Jesus, He wanted to do the supernatural, but here goes Martha and saying, Jesus, it doesn't make sense. What you're asking me to do, it doesn't make sense. Mabaho na yung kapatid ko. And many times we're like this. Jesus wants to do the supernatural in our life, pero binibigyan natin siya ng mga kung ano-anong excuses na tama naman. Right? Logically, human logic, tama naman eh. Wala namang mali sa sinabi ni Martha. Totoo nga naman, ang 4 na araw na bangkay, mabaho na yan talaga. Right? But, Martha was using her human logic to argue with God's logic. And here comes our last point. A comma and not a period. Martha already put a period on the life of Lazarus. Kaya nga ayaw niyang iparol yung stone, di ba? Sabi niya, patay na yung kapatid namin, mabaho na yan. So she has already put a period. But Jesus wanted to put a comma, saying, Martha, I'm not done yet. I'm not finished yet. So wag mong lagyan ng period, yung lalagyan ko pa lang ng comma. A period indicates an end. A comma indicates a pause. Martha puts a period. Jesus puts a comma. Martha, I'm not done yet. Martha, I'm not finished yet. And so, Jesus responded, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? Pag binasa nyo to, siguro parang nakulitan na rin si Jesus, ano? Parang ang daming beses natin nagtanungan. Sabi mo, naniniwala ka. Sabi ko sa'yo, i-roll mo yung stone. Ayaw mo. Didn't I tell you? Sa Tagalog, di ba sinabi ko na sa'yo? Diba? So rinig natin yung medyo comedy ni Jesus dito na parang, ang kulit mo, Martha, ang kulit mo. Like many of us, right? So sabi ni Jesus, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? Now here's the thing. In the economy of God, in the world of the supernatural, you have to believe in order to see. Right? Sabi ni Jesus, you have to believe in order to see the glory of God. But this is contrary to human logic. Because sa atin, in the natural world, what do we believe? To see is to believe. Right? Huwag mong sabihin sa akin, ipakita mo sa akin, maniniwala ako sa'yo. But in the world of the supernatural, you have to believe in order to see. Now, this makes me think, posible kaya that the reason why we do not see the supernatural is because we keep on living our lives in the natural? Is it possible that the reason why we do not see God's miraculous power in our lives is because we keep on using our human logic? Jesus, pakita mo naman sa akin, maniniwala ako. Jesus, bigyan mo ako ng sign, bigyan mo ako ng glimpse, tsaka ako maniniwala. But Jesus said, no, you have to believe first in order to see. And so, as a result, they rolled the stone. Nakita ba natin dito yung belief ni Martha na naging action? They acted on their faith. Sabi mo, you believe eh. So, roll the stone. Medyo may konting hesitation si Martha, but at the end of it, she rolled the stone. They rolled the stone. So here we can see that they acted on their faith. Madali lang po magsabi na I believe. Right? Lalo na kapag matagal na tayong Christians, madaling magsabi, I believe. Oo, naniniwala ako. Pero pag sinabi na ni God sa atin, sige nga anak, gawin mo nga ito. Ayaw. And this will teach us that true faith and true belief leads to obedience. If there's no obedience, it means you don't really believe. Like Martha. Imagine mo, pag sinabi ni Martha, ayoko. Ibig sabihin, hindi talaga siya naniniwala that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. But she rolled the stone, even if it did not make sense. Hindi niya alam kung anong gagawin ni Jesus. Hindi pa niya na-figure out kung ano ang plano ni Jesus. Pero sabi niya, okay, fine. Roll the stone. The point of death is not death. We know how this story ended. Jesus, when the stone was rolled, Jesus said, come out. And the dead Lazarus came out. And Jesus proved this point. The point of death is not death. The point of death is to reveal the glory of God. And you know what? This is something that I realized when my lolo passed. When we went to the cemetery, syempre we were crying, ganyan. And then my auntie said one thing that really struck me. It's something na alam naman na natin, pero during that moment, it felt like, oo nga, no? You know, my auntie said, hindi na yan ang papa ko. Katawan na lang yan ng papa ko. Because the spirit and the soul of my papa is already with Jesus. And at that time, sabi ko, oo nga, no? And this is when this concept really sank in. When we have Jesus, death is not the end. When a person trusts in Jesus, pag meron tayong mga kamag-anak who have already passed, but if they trusted in Jesus, if they have put their trust in Jesus, death is not the end. Ganun din sa mga bagay na nilagyan na natin ng tuldok sa buhay natin. When we have Jesus, then that is not the end. The point of death is to reveal the glory of God. So this is my last question for you. What is the stone God wants you to roll away so He can do the supernatural in your life? Ano yung pinapagawa sa iyo ng Diyos para sa ganon, magawa niya yung supernatural sa buhay mo? In this story, the physical stone was a huge, huge rock. The spiritual stone was doubt. Diba? May doubt si Martha. How about you? Ano ang stone sa buhay mo? Is it unbelief? Is it pride? Is it unforgiveness? Is it anger? Is it bitterness? What is stopping you from experiencing the supernatural in your life? That stone is blocking your miracle. What is that stone? And how will you respond when God, Jesus, asks you today, anak, roll that stone. Alam ko hindi mo naiintindihan and this doesn't make sense to you, but roll that stone away so I can do the supernatural. How will you respond? Will we respond and use our human logic? Or we think, paano kaya gagawin ng Diyos yun, ano? Wait lang, God. Let me figure it out. Let me think about it first kung paano mo gagawin, and then I'll tell you my decision. Madalas ganun tayo, di ba? We want to figure it out first before we roll the stone. But Jesus said to Martha, roll the stone. And Martha did, even if she did not understand, even if it was contrary to her human logic. Tony Evans said, if you don't do what you know God said, He won't show you what He's up to. If you don't do what you know God said, He won't show you what He's up to. Now, nasa sa atin yan. Do you want to see what God is up to in your life? Do you want to see the miracles that God will do in your life and through your life? Then, take that first step of obedience. I remember a quote from Martin Luther. Sabi niya, hindi mo kailangan makita ang buong staircase to take that first step. Just take that first step. Because you believe, di ba? You believe that there is a staircase, so you take that first step, even if you do not see the entire staircase. So as I close, if there's one thing that I want you to bring home with you, is this. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. And you know that the most fascinating thing about this is that Lazarus, yung ginawa na miracle kay Lazarus was the last miracle of Jesus before he was crucified and before he rose again. And so, his declaration of, I am the resurrection and the life, came true. It was not just, I am the resurrection and the life, tapos walang nangyari. He followed through. Jesus proved that He is the resurrection and the life because He rose again from the dead. He conquered death. Naisip niyo ba yun? Paano ni Jesus, paano siya nabuhay mula sa pagkamatay? Si Lazarus may bumuhay sa kanya. Si Jesus walang bumuhay sa kanya. Sarili niya yun because He is the resurrection and the life. He conquered death. No wonder why we can sing. O death, where is your sting? O hell, where is your victory? Because He has conquered death. Now, why is it important for us to understand that He is the resurrection and the life? Because if you grasp, if you get to understand that He is the resurrection and the life, you will know na wala nang ibang imposible sa Kanya. What else can't He do kung mismong kamatayan na pagtagumpayan niya? Kung mismong kamatayan na conquer niya, ano pa yung hindi niya kayang gawin sa buhay mo? Ano pa yung hindi niya kayang i-resurrect sa buhay mo, i-restore sa buhay mo? So as I end, if we know that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, you can trust that He can handle the punctuations in your life story. Don't put a question mark where God puts an exclamation mark. When things don't go our way, it is so easy to question God. It is so easy to say, God, bakit ganito? God, bakit ganyan? And when you feel that, Remember the exclamation mark. Remember what God has declared about Himself. When things don't go your way, remember who He says He is. Remember that He wants to show Himself to you. Don't miss Him. Don't put a period where God puts a comma. Sabi natin kanina, because there is Jesus, because we have Jesus, resurrection is always possible, is always available. There is no person too broken. There is no chain too strong. There is no situation too hopeless. There is no one and nothing beyond repair for Jesus. So, if Jesus tells you, if Jesus is telling you today, anak, hindi pa ako tapos, don't put a period. Don't put an end. Because Jesus is only putting a comma, a pause, because He's not finished yet with your life. But lastly, don't put a comma where God puts a period. May mga bagay na what's that Tagalog word? God decides to end something in your life. And when He decides to end something in your life, trust Him. Trust Him because He sees the big picture. He sees things that you cannot. Trust Him. And when He's asking you to do something, don't leave Him hanging. Obey. Because He knows, lagi natin sinasabi kanina, it's always for our good and for His glory. So trust the punctuations that God will put in your life story. Trust Him. And I hope and pray that today we will get to really experience that because Jesus is the source of life, we can say, God, you put a comma, you put a period, you put an exclamation mark, I accept it because you are the resurrection and the life.